Alright, so this is a story about my first job, my first car, and a co-worker named Willie. Um, when I was graduating high school, I graduated right in the middle of the Great Recession. When that first started up, that was my senior year of high school. And it was pretty rough, graduating high school and being sent out in the world with such bleak job prospects. And so I figured, what I was gonna do is I was just gonna put in my little applications or whatever, and not really expecting to hear back from anybody and just ride the couch the whole time. But that wasn't gonna sit with my dad. My dad, he's an old military type, that he comes from the era where you can do anything you set your mind to or whatever, and you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And today that's still mostly true, but at the time of this story, it there wasn't very much hope to be had, at this point. And so he's completely on my ass, no matter how many applications I put in for, if I ain't working, it ain't enough, basically. And, so finally, he goes to work one day and starts asking, co-workers, anybody, got a job, that my son can do or whatever. And, he's got a co-worker named Joel that, he started up a automotive garage on the side, making a little bit of income through that. And he goes, yeah, I'll let him work out there, and even if he don't know how to work on cars or whatever, I got a old transmission guy that used to, run on the only transmission shop in town way back in the day. And, he'll teach him everything he knows, and we'll get him up to speed or whatever. So, great, he shows up to my house next day, and I hop in the truck, and there's two other guys there, and they're my two other co-workers. And so, pretty much you got Ron there. He's, quick story about Ron is, let you know who Ron is that he broke his leg raking leaves a couple months after I started working out there. You go, how in the world did he break his leg raking leaves? Well, Ron fell out of a tree. What? That makes even less sense, don't it? Ron is like ADHD from hell, and friggin' he goes to rake this lady's yard for a little bit of extra income or whatever, and he's out there raking, and you notice there's a tree that leaves are falling from. So Ron, in all his genius, decides to get his 50-plus-year-old 200-pound ass up that tree, rake in hand, and get them leaves from the source. he shimmies up that freaking tree and hops on the lowest branch he can find, and he's kind of little, uneasy on the freaking branch. He's not balanced too well. He's kind of shaking and whatever, and he's trying to hold on to his rake and the tree at the same time. But old Ron's gonna get them leaves. He's determined at this point. He goes to stand completely up on this branch, and he reaches his stupid ass out with this rake and falls straight the hell over. I mean, he just falls straight down and breaks his leg on the ground, raking freaking leaves. And so that's Ron. Then you have Willie, who is the transmission shop guy. He's basically, he's basically disabled at this point, and on disability and whatever. And But he owes Joel a whole lot of money, because that's the thing about Willie, is Willie is good at two things. Willie's good at owing people money, and Willie's good at not paying the people he owes money to. That's Willie in a nutshell. And Willie he's supposed to be there to pay, Joel back, the money that he owes Joel, but Joel is actually losing money, on the whole deal, because, Willie's just screwing him so bad. He's got Willie running Willie's got Joel running all over town for him. He hasn't got a car or whatever. And Joel pretty much draws a line in the sand. He said, "You know what, Willie, I can't be driving you all over town. I'm just gonna pick you up from work, drop you off from work, and then drop you off home, and that's it. You're gonna have to find your own transportation to all this other crap." And so later that day, the very next day after he tells him this, we get a customer in, and he wants a new cylinder head gasket. He's got a blown one or whatever. And Willie pulls it into the shop, and I don't know shit about cars at this time, so what Willie's doing is he's making me do all the work, and basically just telling me what to do, and he's just watching, making sure I don't screw anything up. And so he tells me to go ahead and take the cylinder head off, take the cylinder head gasket off, and put a new one in there. So I go to take the cylinder head off, and there's no spot in the gasket where it's blown. And Willie takes a look at the cylinder head, and the cylinder head's warped. So what Willie gets me to do, Willie says, "You know what, it's late. Just get some gasket and a tube and freaking goop that crap on the engine block and put the cylinder head back on." Me not knowing any better, Of course, that's a stupid freaking idea. That's a temporary solution, not a permanent. And, but I didn't know that at the time. I just gooped this crap on and put the cylinder head on, and Willie gets the keys to this car, and he takes off of it and goes home and goes about his business. And me and Joel are looking at each other like, what the hell? And so Willie is driving this car all over town in this customer's car that he ain't supposed to be driving around in. He's supposed to be working on it. And weeks go by, Willie's still driving this car. Freaking customers coming by, every few days. "Well, have you got my car, done yet?" And Willie go, "No, well, I'm trying to get the parts man to get me a cylinder head, and he can't get the cylinder head because truck won't show up." And it's all a lie. Willie ain't called nobody about this car. Willie's got him a free ride. So, few more weeks go by. Willie's still driving this freaking car all over town. Joel's just disgusted over the whole thing, trying to get Willie to not do that. And Willie shows up one morning in the car, and he's followed by another car. And he goes, "Joel, I'm heading off to Florida for a couple of days. I ain't gonna be back for a while." And Joel's kind of like, "Well, Willie, that's real last minute. I can't let you go like that. I need you here." And Willie goes, "Man, my cousin in Florida's dying. I need to go see him, whatever." And so Joel reluctantly agrees. He leaves the customer car at the shop, and he hops in the car that follows him, and he heads off for Florida. And later on that day, Cops show up. Cops show up, a tow truck shows up, and the customer shows up. Police go up to Joel, and he's like, we're here to come get this customer's car. The customer hasn't, had it fixed in like a month. He wants his shit back. And, we need to talk to Willie. And Joel goes like, well, Willie just left for Florida. The customer blows up. I knew I shouldn't have called him. I knew I shouldn't have called Willie ahead of time. Let him know I was coming to get my crap. Willie got the hell on. Willie wasn't having none of that. Willie ain't that dumb. So, police leave, tow truck leaves, customer leaves, and Joel calls Willie and lets him know what happened. Willie goes, "All right, I'll be there tomorrow, and just let me talk to my cousin or whatever." Willie comes back the next day, and of course, he doesn't try to rectify the situation. He doesn't contact the customer. He doesn't freaking try to get in touch with the cops. None of that. Willie ain't stupid. And, Willie, goes up to Joel, and he goes, well, can I borrow your truck? You got a couple vehicles. Let me borrow your truck, and I'll put gas in it, and I'll do whatever. And Joel reluctantly agrees, and he's got a whole list of what he wants John to not do in his freaking truck, because Willie's a smoker, and Joel is one of those non-smokers that don't want nothing to do with cigarette smoke. He's completely adverse to it. And he goes, well, Willie, I don't want you smoking in my truck. I don't want you and Willie's going, yeah, just give me the keys. He's just trying to get Joel to shut the hell up so he can get the hell on. So, Joel gives Willie the keys. Willie hops in the truck, fires it up, lights up a cigarette. Joel just blows up. Willie, don't do that. I told you not to. Willie rolls the windows up, throws it in reverse, and gets the hell on. Willie don't give a shit. So, Willie comes back the next morning, and Joel is just fuming. Joel, Willie, I told you not to freaking smoke in my truck, and that's the first thing you did when you left out of here. Willie's like, I didn't smoke in your truck. And he said, yes, you did. I saw you when you left out of here. I can even smell. And right in mid-sentence, he looks down at the freaking seat. And Willie has put out his cigarette in the driver's seat. Burned a hole in the driver's seat right between the legs. And Joel goes, what the fuck is that? What is this bullshit? You burned a hole in my freaking... And, Joel is just screaming at this point. And, tells Willie, he wants his truck back. You can't borrow the truck no more. Willie goes, alright, hands him the keys back. A couple days go by. We get a customer come in with little subcompact Suzuki, and this a real old lady. She has somebody follow her, and she goes, she walks up, and she's talking to Joel about what all the car's doing. It'll randomly shut off, and check engine light will come on or whatever, and she can't drive it for more than like 5 minutes at a time or whatever, and seeing if we could do anything about fixing it. And Willie's in the shop, and he overhears this, and me and Joel are talking to this lady, and John walks, he just storms out of there and pushes me and Joel out of the way to talk to this lady. I mean, he is all. We had never seen Willie this eager to hear, what this lady said. It was really out of character for him. And she's telling Willie what all going on, and Willie goes, "Well, can I see the keys to it?" And she goes, "Yeah." And Willie goes up and he tries to crank it up and whatever, and he sees the check engine light and the car goes off on him, quits out, whatever. He pops the hood, he goes around, he jiggles something around in the hood and goes back and jiggles the key and whatever, and goes back and jiggles the hood and closes the hood. And Willie goes up to this real old lady and her poor husband, and he said, "Well, the ECU in the car is bad. I'm gonna have to get another one, and it's gonna be real expensive." And she goes, "Oh dear, poor little old lady. How expensive is it gonna be?" And Willie's going, "Well, with parts and labor, it's probably gonna be upwards of $600. And she goes, "Oh, I don't know if I can put $600 in this poor little car. It's probably not even worth fixing or whatever." And Willie goes, "Well, I'll tell you what, freaking." At the time that this Suzuki was made, it was owned by, Suzuki was owned by General Motors. And it's got a General Motors engine in it, just with a Suzuki body over on top. And he goes, it's a real common engine that's in this car. And he goes, we could really use it for spare parts, Junkyard's probably gonna give you $75 for it. He goes, I'll give you, $100 for it. And she goes, "Well, I don't know if I can just give it away for $100. I know it's broken, whatever." And Willie goes, "You know what? We would really need this car. For extra parts and whatever." He goes, "I'll give you $200 for it." And Joel's blowing up. "No, the hell you won't give her $200 for this car. We don't need this car." And Joe's or Willie's going, yeah, shut up, and we need this car. He said, "I'll pay with it out of my own pocket. We need it so bad." And Joel, agrees and whatever, and said, long as you pay for it, And Willie goes, "Well, if we ended up needing parts off this car, you gonna pay me back, right?" Joel reluctantly agrees, and the lady agrees to the $200, and she gives him the key and the title, or she goes back and gets the title or whatever, and gives John basically everything that he needs and whatever. And John takes it and they leave, and John walks back in the shop and leaves the freaking car in the parking lot. And Joel's like, "Well, ain't you gonna get the car?" And Joel's like, "No." And by the end of the day, Joel gets keys to the car. He pops the hood and jiggles something in the hood, closes the hood, cranks it up, puts it in reverse, and takes off. Not a problem. Willie knew what was wrong with that car. He just basically screwed this lady out of a car. And he's driving this car all over town that he got for $200, that he screwed this lady out of for $200, he gets back and whatever, and all's life goes on for a little while, and Willie comes back. He called. There was one day, freaking Joel pulls up to my house, and I go to hop in, and Willie's in the truck. And I go, well, Willie, ain't you got that car? And he's like, no, I got to, I ended up getting a DUI and had to bond myself out and whatever. And Joel ain't even talking at this point. Joel is so mad at freaking Willie screwing everybody over and everything, and being that irresponsible to get himself a DUI and whatever. And now he's got to freaking take him back and forth to work. Joel's still on about trying to get his money out of Willie, and Willie's just screwing him so bad. And so we get back to the shop, and Joel goes, how much is it gonna take to get that car out of the impound? And Willie goes, about $200. And Joel looks at me. He says, "Razor, how much money do you have?" And I tell him, how much money I had at the time. It wasn't very much. He goes, I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen. Willie, I'm not picking you up from your house and taking you to work no more. I'm gonna give Razor the rest of the money that he needs to buy that little car out of the impound, and Razor's gonna pick you up and take you back and forth to work. And he's gonna need the title from you and all this other stuff, to get that car out of the impound. And you're basically gonna sell it to him because you ain't got a license no more. You got your license suspended for DUI. And so I get everything to get this car out of impound, and because the car's was involved with the DUI, there's a bunch of crazy rules that I have to sign legally binding documents to and everything, and so I pretty much take Willie back and forth to work, and every morning in this car. And the crazy thing about it is Willie turned out not to be that bad of a guy, even though I had kind of a bias against him, to begin with. He was kind of treating Joel like a piece of shit, but I got to know the guy, and he's a real cool dude. Found out that he was a Gulf War veteran and all this other stuff, and man, we get breakfast together and whatever, and it really odd that somebody like him turned out to be such a cool dude. But that's pretty much it for my video about my first car, my first job, and my coworker named Willie. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.